Greetings, sir and sirettes, and welcome back to Stellaris with me, Lathrix, and of course, welcome to a bit of a weird video, because today we are simply testing out an idea. Now, normally, this is the kind of thing I would do in the background, but I really think this has the potential of a really fun playthrough in the future. Today, we are the Blob Authority, and we have syncretic evolution, along with the fact we're not exactly the kindest of empires, fanatic, authoritarian, and xenophobic, along with being a dictatorship. The reason for this is because our secondary species is going to be a lithoid and instantly is going to be an owned population. The reason for this to begin with is just because having an owned population which are industrious is incredibly powerful. We have the serviles bonus, then we have industrious. We are going to get a lot of minerals and a lot of all the basic resources. In fact, if we wanted to, we could turn them into bonus energy or something else. But here's the reason why I'm specifically going down the route of minerals. It turns out, if you have a lithoid species, you have an owned lithoid species, and you set them to livestock, they actually give you minerals rather than food. So the whole concept of this playthrough is eventually, we are going to be devouring our lithoid friends for our only source of minerals, especially once we have thrall worlds. Now, to begin with, we will be keeping them as the basic owned population. The reason is we need all of the basic resources in order to thrive to begin with, but as soon as we have genetic modifications, we can have a secondary version of them, which will be placed on planets with the express purpose of just being minerals. Now, these livestock lithoids only take up a third of a normal owned population's housing usage, and they give you quite a few minerals. So, in the end, we can densely pack them into planets where our normal species can't normally live. Because these are lithoids, they do have the bonus to habitability, which means even before the whole genetic restructuring, we can have them growing on planets and then being shipped back to the main planets in order to have a free labour force, which is growing on every single planet we can find, whereas normally, the blobs simply wouldn't step foot there. And I think this even makes sense in terms of a lore perspective. So the lore of this world is that the vast majority of it is covered in extremely deep oceans, with only a few scattered islands here and there, which means, in the early days of the civilization, especially before it had more of the modern equipment, getting raw resources was incredibly difficult, until they found an island, let's say this one, which had the lithoids on. The lithoids were already a docile species made of all of the resources they were already lacking. They were incredibly hardy, able to harvest minerals which the blobs didn't really have access to, and they found when the lithoids would eventually collapse under all of that work, the lithoids themselves made fantastic housing. So the cities themselves suddenly became simply created by the lithoids in their final act to be minerals themselves. The ships eventually would become lithoid, and pretty much everything the blobs would need stems from the lithoid species they keep as, well, pets. Let's say pets, for the sake of the YouTube algorithm. So our goal then really is just to expand as fast as possible and to find as many worlds as possible. If the world is not really habitable by the blobs, then it will become a world which we simply grow the lithoids. Eventually those worlds will have only the lithoids which are classed as livestock, but for now, we'll grow everything there, and then slowly transport them back to the main worlds. Here's the thing though, on those planets, we really want them to have at least 10 population in order to remove the colony debuff, which is, I think, minus 50% growth rate. Since lithoids are already slow growing, we really don't want them to have any more negative modifiers. Now, our first governor, I believe, no, our first leader is kind of cruel as well. Yep, optimizations, plus 10% to our owned populations. So with that, I'm going to start expanding, and hopefully soon, we'll get everything we possibly need. Growth rate is great. Research is great, and hopefully soon we can get genetics so that we can have the livestock as well, since that is the main part of this game. So, to clarify, the reason why we're not turning them into livestock straight away is this. If we take a look, we have mining positions open at the moment, and our worlds aren't oversaturated. So, we do get more minerals from miners than we get from livestock. So we may as well just keep them there working until later on, when we have loads of blobs and everything. So we want blobs working all the other jobs, and then just lithoids producing minerals whilst not taking up jobs. Essentially unlimited minerals because they don't need any districts or buildings to work from. And we'll have thrall worlds. Since we have lithoids, going through nutritional plentitude is really nice, although it does increase the upkeep of minerals which the lithoids are eating. But still, worth it. Plus 5% growth rate and happiness for all. Another thing to bear in mind is when it says something like this, minerals from jobs, being livestock does thankfully count as a job within this game. For now, we'll just take this because it'll give us more, but later on, things like this are really ideal. In fact, it's the main reason why I've gone with Fanatic Authoritarian, plus 10% output. That's interesting, so encourage planetary growth, which is a food-based decision, will in fact affect lithoids. I'm assuming if you're playing a lithoid empire with lithoids as the main species, though, that may cost minerals or simply not exist. Trying to completely box in this other empire. They don't like me very much, but they don't hate me either. So if I can get this system and this system, and then quickly grab these afterwards, we could really mess with them. Oh, we have to do it very fast, though. Let's make a new science vessel and send it in expressly over there. Oh, that is a shame for them. They just got here a little bit too late, and I've been bribing them with resources, so they still don't hate us that much. Despite the fact I am boxing them in, and there's lots and lots of border friction. I can probably keep them permanently as unfriendly, since we're only going to have 3 sections of border friction, and now I'm going to start grabbing these systems as well, and just... well, this is their corner of the galaxy. Well, first impressions of the Empire are this is a really good Empire early game, because you get so much of the basic stuff, you can just buy anything you want, and your expansion can be very, very quick. Oh, no, thankfully that isn't another Empire, those are the space whales. However, it's going to be the late game that's going to be the most interesting, when we have worlds like this, and we have livestock. For now, it's doing exactly what you'd expect. It's an authoritarian empire with a secondary species which are owned and giving you loads of materials because of all the bonuses imparted on them. Serviles plus 10%, the governor, high stability, ownership, the empire itself, and then industrious. Loads of minerals. Getting the rare resources has been nice though, because occasionally we sell 10 of them and make 70 energy out of nowhere, so that has helped surprisingly quite a lot. Interstellar Dominion versus One Vision right now. Or even just Technological Ascendancy, getting that early on. You know what? Sure. Next up, we'll get Discovery. We are going very tech-heavy. We're kind of ignoring alloys as much as we can. And still bribing this empire just so they don't go to war with us. Currently, we're at, like, -10, though we should be at, like, -70. Here's something to consider in the future. Right now, we don't have migration controls on the not blobs, because I want them on every planet. But later on, we're going to want specific types of these on specific planets. We don't want them growing on other worlds. So we will need migration controls enabled. For now, though, might as well just leave it. So, as a side thing we've been testing, really, is it feasible to have lithoids as your secondary species since they have the -25% growth rate? How bad is that going to be? And honestly, it hasn't been much of a hindrance in the slightest. When you're starting off a new world, it's mostly migration, and then once you get the new world up and running, with all the other bonuses a normal empire has, I'm hardly even noticing we have that negative modifier, so instantly, lithoids become a very good secondary species. Now, if you weren't going to have them as an own population, you could use them to inhabit loads of planets. Now, sadly, they will be serviles if you do it in this way, which means, if we go over here, they can't be rulers or specialists, so you would need some of your main species over there just to do some minor roles to keep the planet up and running. But you could still have planets you would normally not have in the early game. So, a new use for lithoids? I think already we are proving that yes, if you're going down this route, you can very easily have a lithoid syncretic evolution run, and it'd be absolutely fine. In fact, if you wanted to, you could have both of the species as lithoids, and then you can have double the rare resource. Well, not double the amount, but double the type. For instance, I could have rare crystals and gas. Since normally a lithoid can only have one or the other. Just 4,000 energy. Pretty nice early on. Okay, so here's something I'm going to need to pay attention to. This is an arid world. It's going to be our first world where we specifically try and grow the not blobs. And here's the problem. Will it automatically try and grow the regular blobs? If it does this, there's going to be some serious problems. Because of the low habitability, our growth rate will be decreased by 15%, the blob's resources from jobs minus 15%, our upkeep is plus 30%, and our amenities usage is also increased by 30%. Obviously, the blobs here are almost worthless. They are not exactly suited for this. Whereas the regular blobs have a habitability of 70%, so all of that is massively reduced. I'm hoping I don't have to do this and click on not blob over here and force only that growth, because doing so adds a minus 20% modifier. Of course, if we do grow the normal blobs, we can always just ship them back to a main world, but it'd be much better if it just made these. So as long as it makes the not blobs, let's say 9 out of 10 times, I'll be happy. I think it will only ever make them because of habitability, but we're going to find out. You're welcome. Plus 20. Can I ever get you away from being unfriendly? Probably not, but let's give it a shot. Also, that was massively too much. Nope. Oh well, as long as you don't go to war with us, I don't really care. Shouldn't have gave him that much energy. Kind of forgot we only needed 22 extra rating, since the maximum is plus 100 for favourable trade deals. Oh well. They'll just sit there forever, as we spread like a virus. We continue to expand aggressively to everything we possibly can claim. Tensions are rising with the Empire over here, but once again, through bribery and our immense wealth, we are able to keep the peace. Soon, we can start really going into tech. At the moment, the worlds are still just foundations, but a lot of them are now reaching a more mature state, and once they get to that stage, we can get loads of stuff from them. A little bit annoying that the relic world is only growing the not blobs. Might need to swap them out soon. Okay, we're now preventing these fellows from migrating. The reason is, we now have the problem of some worlds are growing way too many of the not blobs and not enough of the regulars, and that's because of their increased habitability. Normally, when you're doing this type of empire and you have syncretic evolution, both of the species have the same habitability, unless you add a specific trait. But because the not blobs are so habitable, even on worlds which are 70% habitable with the regulars, these are 100%, so the world will normally grow these way more than these. So new worlds I get, which are habitable enough for the blobs, I need to allow to only grow them. So unless I place one of the lithoids there, they'll never grow lithoids now. Finally, we are getting genetic modification. Now, the reason why that is so good is we can now convert our growth worlds into pseudo-thrall worlds. Now, a thrall world is special in that you can only grow non-free population, so any population with freedom is simply not allowed to grow there. But what can grow there has a huge growth rate increase, and you also get specialist buildings you can place there. Now, of course, I can't do that just yet. In fact, it's a rare research later on. But with this, we can now have multiple versions of the not blobs, since it will allow me to create templates, and each of the templates can have different rules. And because none of them can migrate, any of them growing on the growth planets are now simply going to be livestock. So we're going to try our best to grow them as fast as possible, and the worlds will give us nearly unlimited minerals, because a livestock only take up 1/3 of the housing needs of an owned population, which is already lower than a regular. Lots and lots of minerals. And they eat minerals, so they'll eat minerals and give us more minerals than they eat. That is awesome. Our research isn't doing fantastic because of how aggressive we have been with expansion, but I really do feel like we are going to be such a rich empire. In fact, we already are. We are bribing everyone not to fight us. We now also have the processing facilities, increasing our owned population's output by 5%, and decreasing their political power, which means more stability. Speaking of stability, one thing I don't think I've explained so far is this. Our empire has police state. This is almost purely for that +5 stability, but also enforcers get extra unity, which is nice because we might need enforcers on the growth worlds later on. Now converting all of the growth lithoids into a new subspecies. The subspecies then can have their own rules later on. Really, we should do this later. Once again, this is going to be fantastic when we are a bit more saturated with our population. But for fun, we now have lithoid livestock, which did indeed increase our mineral output by a little bit. Not by a huge amount, but still. So now if we go to our growth worlds, we should be growing that type, I think. I'm hoping we are. And we no longer need the districts. That's the big deal. So all of that can be saved. Just leave one of those. So we have... In fact, I don't even need that one right now. There we are. We do need a bit more with amenities, though. So we do need, perhaps, another blob here just to keep things running. But other than that, no districts. Nice. Negotiate with crime lords. Now, this is really awesome. It gives you plus 10 stability, so way more resources on the planet, though you also get more crime, so eventually you'll have more criminals and such on the planet. But you can't really get that many criminals, since it doesn't really stack with population, so you'll only have 3 or 4, even near the end, during events. And for that 10 stability, yeah, sure.
Construction complete.
So we could either get 30 relics and 500 influence, or do this. I don't know what this is. I went with the option of getting the new relic site, but right now, something else I've just realised is that our Empire Sprawl is pretty horrendous right now. But normally, really, the worst thing for your Empire Sprawl is the districts, because you have so many of them near the end, they do normally constitute the majority of your Empire Sprawl. With the livestock, we have so few districts per planet, all we're really getting is the colonies, which is only 2 Empire Sprawl per colony. Then 1 city district. For such a huge population, and that's going to stay this way for quite some time. So that's another good thing with the livestock, it's actually less painful to your Empire Sprawl per material. I am trying to justify this way of playing. There is a certain bias there, but I do think this really cruel way of playing is something we could do. We could be a truly, truly horrendous empire. We have found the home world, which is always lovely.
Construction.
And now, finally, we're growing enough blobs, so that is something I need to learn to manage if I play through this again. Because of the change of habitability, it enables having worlds like this where we don't have to specifically choose the not blobs, but they'll always grow them because they have a higher habitability than the regulars. But the problem is that also works against us, so even on planets where I want blobs, they tend to want to grow these instead because the habitability is still in their favour. Need to work around that. In fact, there's plenty of ways to do so, but I didn't realise it'd be such a problem. That's why we've got so many minerals, but we haven't really got much of anything else. Our research now is finally growing. Now I've realised it's a problem, I am working around it, so we should be doing better over the next 40 or so years. Because I'm a Xeno, I can do this. Xeno squish brains. This will mean our homeworld has the modifier plus 20% resources from all jobs and plus 10 stability and 3 relics, or 3,500 alloys, 500 influence, and 3 relics. This is better in the long run, this is better in the short term. Long run. Our homeworld will be perfected. The Enhanced Learning Program trains the population to better fit the needs of the Empire as they sleep, improving their output significantly. That's just fantastic. So, here's something unique. I have now just made our very first resort world. Yes, it's not a thrall world, but surprisingly, it's pretty good for growing livestock. So, a resort world gives plus 15% amenities and plus 15% immigration pull to all of the worlds, and it becomes 100% habitability, with 1 clerk job being created every 2 populations. That's really good, but here's the thing, normally, you really struggle for housing, since you can't build any districts once you turn it into a resort world, and most of the building types have been restricted except for these. you have to build luxury residences, and that doesn't quite cover all the people living there. However, if you have livestock, which take almost no housing, you could have hundreds of them here with absolutely no negatives, and you still get the amenities bonus to all of the planets, which is the whole point of the resort world. So I'm making a profitable, mineral resort world, and I think it's going to be really good. Not as good as a thrall world, but amenities for everyone else. I'm starting to think that maybe one of the better things we could have done is to have worlds which only have the blobs, for instance the home world. And over time, move these completely out. That way I wouldn't need to have the prioritized species, for instance. Something to consider for the future. Again, this is a test run. Normally I'll do this without recording, but I thought it was interesting enough that hopefully it's entertaining. Hopefully. Oh, penal colony, that is not what I wanted, but I'm going to grab it anyway. We are getting more than enough food currently just from our regular livestock, and we are getting more than enough minerals now purely from our livestock lithoids. We don't need any more of the originals here. So, they now have population controls. So from now on, we are only breeding the blobs. And soon enough, we can remove decadents, because the only jobs they're ever going to work are either clerks or specialist jobs. That's it. That's all we need them for. And if we ever do want any more of these, we can always make a new subset and then grow them somewhere else. I think I'm figuring out how to do this now. So hopefully the next time I play through this, now I've learned a lot of this, I should be a lot better from the start. Although we're not doing terribly, honestly. We are now finally starting to really power up. Now, this is also to test out. I don't think I would go with the genetic route with this empire, honestly, but there is a chance that we can make our mineral-giving species give us more minerals. Since normally you have the delicious gene at the very end of the genetic ascension path. Is there a mineral version? I actually don't know. I don't think there is, but we're going to find out. Plus, we do have the food currently incoming from our regular species we have as livestock, so I think it's still worth it. Okay, you can stay as weak because that doesn't affect your output as trade. Rapid breeders, perhaps? Charismatic? Thrifty? All great, considering what we're going to turn you into. Less housing usage is always good. I think for now, rapid breeders, and we may as well remove weak since we don't have space for any of these. Although we have some points that don't have space. So, although things now are going really, really good, really, really fast, I am realising very quickly that we should have been converting into pure blob growth a lot earlier. Also, I've realised that sounds really weird, but yeah, we just don't have enough blobs to work everything. But our minerals continue to skyrocket, as is being proven right now. So is our food, so is everything else, and they are getting faster and faster. So I don't think we're ever going to have to worry about minerals again. And remember, these worlds are almost limitless when it comes to how many minerals they're going to give us, because as soon as we're out of housing, we just place down one luxury residence, and that already gives us 3 extra housing, with each of these only giving us a quarter of one, so it's 4, 8, 12 of these per housing. And that's only rank 1 housing, and then after that we can just build city districts. I'm just avoiding that purely because that also increases our empire sprawl. We could have, I think, probably thousands of these livestock without any issue per world. Still waiting, though, on getting the correct society research, which is getting really annoying. Well, we have fallen empires now on our side. The reason is we managed to get the head of Zarkian, which means we now have these fellows. Once every 3,600 days, I can use this for 150 influence, and it'll give us a small fleet, which does increase in power, I believe, as the game goes on. Since normally you get like 13k, though that could be because of repeatables. Either way, these are really, really good ships. And in addition to that, I think we are allowed to inhabit these worlds, the holy worlds, without being hated. Well, guess we're gonna find out. And of course the holy worlds are just really amazing Gaia worlds. The Chosen. Yep, we are indeed allowed to colonize holy worlds. Well, this one will be interesting. Amenities usage minus 10%, housing usage minus 10%. Yep.
Construction complete.
Even more of our lovely workers.
Complete.
It's now been 100 years from the start, and we still don't have the main tech we need, so I might need to look it up to see what other techs we require to get Thrall worlds, because although we're doing okay without them now, it would have been so much smoother, and will be even smoother from here, if we get some more. So, Thrall worlds, very, very much wanted. Blob! Suddenly it's worth it being called Blob. Whoa. Thank you. Accept this gift of sacred knowledge as a token of our boundless benevolence. Well, thank you for the research. That's pretty darn nice.
Complete.
And that's because we've just claimed the holy world as our own. And of course, we're allowed to. We finally have the tech. So, after reading up, it turns out if you have a leader with statecraft, it massively increases the chance that you get that tech. So, should have done that from the start. Again, something I now know for the next playthrough. So with that, let's figure out what worlds we can turn into a Thrall world, shall we? That's fantastic. Okay, it looks like there are no size limits, so remove that. Ah, but we do have to remove all of our buildings, so let's see if it's even worth it. There's a good chance that Thrall world is not as good as a regular world with all the other things we can build on it. But we are going to find out fairly soon. So, we now have a Thrall world. Fantastic. Population growth is dramatically increased. We can still build the clone vats, we just have to destroy them first. So that's plus 50%, plus 33%. Amazing. Then we have the Overseers. Now, the Overseers, I'm not sure if Livestock can become an Overseer. I'm hoping they can. They actually can. Okay, that's fantastic. So an Overseer... What does an Overseer actually do exactly? Oh, okay. So if we go over to the Overseers... It adds happiness to the planet. Which is insane. Removes crime... and adds defense armors, but sadly nothing to do with amenities. But I think you can get amenities via something else here. Right? Am I wrong? I'm sure there's another job we can give them. I could just be mistaken here. So two things. First of all, if you have a normal worker here, a non-livestock, you will be able to simply have toilers. Toilers will produce amenities. But of course we'll still have upkeep, so that's kind of horrendous. But also, you can have the districts being worked by the workers here. I didn't realise this with Thrall worlds. So why wouldn't I just have the districts being worked rather than livestock? And simply put, there's not that many jobs here. Although the jobs are more efficient, very quickly we will run out of jobs here. So there's a grand total of 6 mining districts on this planet. Some of them are smaller than this, which means a grand total of 12 jobs. So already we have more livestock than could fill that, so we may as well just continue having more and more livestock. Also, the livestock don't take up housing, well at least not very much. Though it might be best then, still, until all the districts are completely used up, to have a mixture of the regular and livestock. Though, saying that, more districts means more admin cap. Our empire sprawl is actually quite low considering the size of our empire. And that's because of this. So I'm not sure what would be the best. Going to have a think about that. So I just tested, and even if you have only buildings which are allowed in a Thrall world, you still can't convert it into a Thrall world until you remove them all. I think worlds like this really showcase why livestock is really good for the Lithoids. Only 3 mining districts is very, very little. Of course, we could get food from this world instead, and even energy, so I think realistically what would be best is to have some of the regular workers grown on one planet and then sent to the others. Or even just grown on every planet along with the livestock in order to have these and the toilers. A little bit annoying having to regrow all of that, though. Regrow, rebuild. So here's something curious. After a while, I've looked back at the thrall worlds, and now we have toilers, even though these are all livestock. And this is happening on every single thrall world, so it seems like the worlds will sort of self-regulate, and thus you're never going to have an amenities problem. So, are thrall worlds worth it for livestock? Yes, 100% yes. Also, very soon, we're going to have the next genetic set of bonuses, since we now have Evolutionary Mastery, and are currently researching that. In fact, we've just got that now. So what we can do is take a look at how powerful we can make our species. So, modify template. So sadly, we don't have a version of Delicious, which is a real shame, but we do have Nerve Stapled. This is a big deal, because it simply reads, not affected by happiness. Which is great, and a plus 5% to our resources from jobs. That's fantastic, because it means the thrall worlds will be way more stable, because now we're only going off the happiness of the rulers, and the little that the owned populations could actually contribute to that are completely gone. So Nerve Stapled. We still want them to have minerals. Oh, we can actually remove serviles now if we wish. We're not going to, because that's a really nice bonus, but still, if we want to, we can, which is interesting. So we could actually have some of these as a true secondary species. That's interesting. That is really interesting for future playthroughs. Less so for this one, but still. Now, do we still want crystals from them? We probably do. Even though they don't really give us that much, they're only giving us 2.5 total. So actually, at this point, no, we don't want that anymore. So we don't. So we should just increase their basic output, I suppose. So essentially giving them plus 10% there. Anything else we want them to have? Not really. None of the positives really affect them in their current position, so there we go. They are now nerve stapled. And apply that to all of the original ones. As in all of the original livestock, which are these ones, I believe, yes. After that, we have our food, which are these three. Now, this is a lot more simple. Move all that. We want fertile, we want nerve stapled, and we want delicious. There we go. Plus 30% population growth speed. We get 2 food extra per one of livestock, and once again, they're no longer affected by happiness. Ooh, we could make them agrarian, giving us even more food, so how do we do that then? Repugnant, agrarian, and then strong. Nope, sadly, we simply run out of space, so rather than repugnant... No, actually, no, repugnant's fine. That's going to be a lot of food. So we copy that to each of the food species. Okay, then the nerve-stapled versions are now here. And yep, that is far better. Let's just quickly remove this worker, which really shouldn't be here. Goodbye. So now the stability is far higher because there's no happiness at all within our livestock. The livestock no longer can be happy. They're essentially drones now. They're producing more minerals because of the bonuses. And overall, they are just fantastic. So, let's do the same now with the organic food version. Well, that's pretty impressive. They are now growing at almost 10 points per month. They are producing 11.5 food each. The stability of the planet has gone through the roof because, of course, now they can't be unhappy. So even if we did have some kind of amenities problem, it wouldn't really matter because of how happy these are in comparison to the nothing, which they can be. And in fact, right now we have an unemployed fellow which shouldn't even be here, so let's remove you. And that should increase stability even more, perhaps? Once the month ends and it actually updates. It might not, but it would be nice to see it go even higher. Alas, sadly not, but still, stability incredibly high, way more food. Obviously, going down the genetic path is the correct route here, because that's just insane. Okay, with that though, I'm afraid I am all out of time for today's video, and so we say goodbye to the Blob Authority. This was a bit of a weird video, and I hope it was enjoyable, I hope it was entertaining, despite the fact it was just me testing out some new ideas. And I really think this is a perfectly viable strategy, now that I know what I'm doing. I really messed up in this playthrough, but despite that, honestly, we're not in the worst position ever. We have loads of mineral income, our research is now starting to skyrocket, we have other worlds which are growing our species fairly quickly, and we're about to upgrade our blobs into these. Fertile, robust, and a huge bonus to their research. They will become incredibly powerful. All of this could have happened 20, maybe 30 years earlier if I knew what I was doing, which sadly, obviously, I didn't this time, but I have learnt a great deal. So, if you have enjoyed today's video, then of course, likes, favourites, shares, comments, all that good stuff, helps out me, helps out the channel, and most importantly, shows that Stellaris is a series you wish to see continued in the future. I may do this a proper full playthrough at some point, and I should do better. But now, I'm off to sleep, because I am incredibly tired. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.